On April 28th, Turkey deported fugitive drug trafficker Salim Ismail Bhai Doulah to India. Now, Doulah had been on the radar of Indian agencies for years. He is described by investigators as an associate of Iqbal Mirchi, a close aide of Dawood Ibrahim. A key accused in the 2018 fentanyl seizure in Mumbai, Doulah had fled India in 2020, first moving to Dubai before relocating to Istanbul in early 2024. Now, at first glance, Doulah's arrest by Turkish authorities and subsequent deportation would seem like a straightforward law enforcement action, right? But look at the bigger picture. This happened after nearly a year of India-Turkey relations being in deep freeze. A freeze triggered by Turkey openly backing Pakistan during Operation Sindoor. So the question is not just why Turkey deported Doulah. The real question is, why are both countries suddenly talking again after one of the worst breakdowns in bilateral ties in recent memory? And more importantly, can India actually trust Turkey? To understand why this thaw matters, let's first look at how bad things got. Because India-Turkey ties were never exactly smooth to begin with. For years, Ankara has consistently leaned towards Pakistan on Kashmir. Turkish President Erdogan repeatedly echoed Islamabad's position on the issue at various international forums. That alone created friction with New Delhi. But the real rupture came after the Pahalgam terror massacre last year, as India launched Operation Sindoor against Pakistan-backed terror infrastructure. Turkey did not stay neutral. It backed Pakistan, publicly, politically, and according to several reports and allegations circulating in Indian discourse at the time, even materially. Suddenly, Turkey wasn't just seen as Pakistan's friend. It was increasingly portrayed in India as actively hostile to Indian interests. And the backlash inside India was swift. Indian travelers started cancelling trips to Turkey. Travel platforms reported bookings crashing. Honeymoon traffic dried up. Destination wedding plans vanished almost overnight. But this wasn't just public outrage. The Indian state also started responding economically. Turkey's celebi airport services lost its security clearance in India. This was a major blow because the company handled operations across several key Indian airports, including Delhi and Mumbai. Then came another signal. Air India announced plans to reduce dependence on Turkish Technic for maintenance operations of its wide-body fleet. Step by step, ties were unraveling. And for months, there was virtually no meaningful diplomatic warmth between the two sides, which is why what happened next became so interesting. Because while the public narrative remained hostile, behind closed doors, diplomacy slowly restarted. In April this year, nearly a year after the Pahalgam massacre, India and Turkey held the 12th round of Foreign Office consultations in New Delhi after a 4-year gap, mind you. Now, normally, Foreign Office consultations are boring, bureaucratic affairs. But this one mattered because it happened after the Pahalgam fallout, after Operation Sindoor, after nearly a year of diplomatic hostility. And according to reports, both sides discussed trade, tourism, cultural cooperation, and importantly, terrorism concerns. Now, that last part matters because shortly after these consultations, Turkey deported Doulah to India. This is not some random timing. This suggests that despite all the political bitterness, security channels between India and Turkey never fully collapsed. And that's where the story gets bigger than just India and Turkey. Because this reset may actually be about something much larger underway across West Asia. For India, India, West Asia is too important to ignore. This region powers India's energy security. Millions of Indians work there. Billions of dollars flow back home in remittances. And over the last few years, New Delhi has dramatically deepened ties with countries like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, but Turkey is also repositioning itself in this region. After years of tensions with Gulf monarchies, Ankara has repaired ties with Saudi, with the UAE, and of course Egypt. It is trying to project itself as a regional power broker again. And unlike before, Turkey now wants economic influence as much as ideological influence. That changes the equation because suddenly India and Turkey are not just colliding over Pakistan, they are also competing and sometimes cooperating across the same strategic geography. And nowhere is this more visible than in the battle over trade corridors. Back in 2023, India unveiled one of its most ambitious connectivity projects ever, the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. Also, you might know that as IMEC. Now, the idea was massive, a trade route connecting India to Europe through the Gulf and Israel, a strategic alternative to China's Belt and Road Initiative, and potentially a game-changing geopolitical corridor. But there was one country missing from that map: Turkey, and Ankara hated that. Turkey immediately began pushing its own alternative vision, the so-called Middle Corridor, a route linking China to Europe through Central Asia, the Caspian region, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Turkey itself, of course. Essentially, Turkey wanted to remain the indispensable bridge between Asia and Europe. Then geopolitics intervened. The Gaza war happened. Regional instability exploded. Iran-Israel tensions escalated. The Gulf became uncertain again. Suddenly, IMEC started looking far more complicated than it did during the glitzy G20 launch in Delhi. The Haifa route became vulnerable, Saudi-Israel normalization stalled, regional rivalries, especially between Abu Dhabi and Riyadh, deepened. But here's the thing, IMEC is not dead. Far from it. Once the Iran war ends, the corridor may well regain momentum because the geoeconomics behind it remains extremely compelling. Estimates suggest IMEC could deliver goods to Europe nearly 40% faster than the traditional Suez Canal route. And unlike many speculative connectivity projects, IMEC has heavyweight backers: the United States, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, the EU, and even Israel. Which means New Delhi's challenge is becoming more complicated. India may still want IMEC to succeed, while simultaneously recognizing that Turkey cannot simply be ignored in the larger Eurasian connectivity game. Now, here's the uncomfortable part. None of this means that India suddenly trusts Turkey. Far from it. The biggest obstacle remains Pakistan and especially Kashmir. Turkey still backs Pakistan's narrative internationally. It still raises Kashmir periodically, and it still sees Islamabad as a key strategic partner. That fundamental disagreement has not disappeared. So this is not some dramatic diplomatic romance. This is cold, cautious recalibration. India appears willing to compartmentalize, meaning disagree on Kashmir, compete geopolitically, but still cooperate where interests overlap, whether on trade, intelligence sharing, counter-crime operations, or even regional connectivity. And Turkey seems interested too, because Ankara also understands something important. India is not a country you can afford to isolate forever. It is one of the world's fastest growing major economies, a rising geopolitical player, and increasingly influential across the Gulf and the global South. Which means both sides now face a choice: stay trapped in permanent hostility because of Pakistan, or build a transactional relationship where cooperation survives despite deep political disagreements. Right now, it looks like both are cautiously exploring option 2. But make no mistake, this thaw is fragile. One major terror attack, one provocative Kashmir statement, one military flare up involving Pakistan, and the entire reset could collapse overnight. Because beneath the diplomacy, the mistrust never really went away. If you like our content, please click on the bell icon to subscribe to this channel. Access will always bring you all the content from the world, all the news from the world, but with a lens that is completely Indian.